Yo, what's going on, guys? So we are after the day 1 of new Torchlight Infinite season, the season 2. So I decided to give you an update on my new character, which is Charge Calling Moto. And yes, this is the new character, which means that to get it, you just have to buy it in the shop for real money. But if you don't want to buy it, next season it's gonna be available for free. You're gonna be able to buy it for in-game tokens. But for now, unfortunately, we just have to buy it for real money. Also, in case you are wondering how I am doing this character so far, let's look at the hero ranking, and as of right now on EU I am actually first, but we have two other people that are pretty close behind me. There's Milky, which probably has already passed me, but this is just not updating, and there is one another Charge Calling Moto behind me. So I don't know if I'm gonna go for level 100, but as of right now I am doing pretty good. So this is the new hero, and the way it works is that when you summon your minions, and as long as you have your overload active, they are gonna detonate. So then they are gonna drop scrap if you have your hero traits, and this scrap is gonna resummon them continuously. So this is how the character works. So let me show you now my day 1 DPS. So you can see it in here. There is a little bit of rotation. I'm gonna talk about that later, and there is a little bit of the wind up at the beginning. So right now there's only 100 million DPS, but once I get my stacks, it is ramping up to 200 million, and you can even see higher DPS in 5 seconds 300, but average overall 200 million. I could reach even higher numbers, but considering this character has 200 million DPS, it is actually also extremely tanky. I'm gonna show you in my inventory. So here you can see I actually have all of my resistances capped. I have almost 5,000 life, a little bit of energy shield. Here you can also see the armor, 33,000 armor, and I am also using the sentry. When I am in here, I am a bit more tanky, and I gain the barrier, which absorbs a ton of damage. So you can use that from time to time to get even more protection. So now let me show you the map. Let's actually go to time mark 8 to make it even harder. Let's go somewhere in here. I'm gonna choose a random map. I'm gonna even roll it. So you're gonna see how it looks like in map. And one thing I'm definitely gonna say is that this character sacrifices convenience and speed for insane damage. If you just want to complete the campaign and all of the progression in Netherrealm, you just want to kill Traveler and so on, this character is extremely good for that. But if you want to grind currency, have a fast speed mapper, this is probably not the character for you. As you can see, I am not like super fast. I am actually using 2 mobility skills. I am lip attacking and using my blink on a cooldown just so I can be faster. You could also invest a little bit into the movement speed to be even faster, but I still haven't done that so far. But yeah, insane in damage, but pretty slow and kinda inconvenient playstyle, because unlike the order calling where you just constantly have your minions, you don't have to do anything, here as you can see I constantly have to resummon them. But now let's look at the bolt DPS. Again, remember this is the tier 8, and boss is pretty much dead. So yeah, and bosses in time mark 7, they die pretty much instantly. Now let me also show you the new season mechanic. In case you don't know how it works, basically you click on this beacon and you summon some additional monsters, and then you get the seal, and after you get 6 of these seals in here, you fight the boss, which is gonna give you rewards depending on what you choose in here. So I'm gonna go for upgrading flame fuel, and yeah, you're gonna see that in 2 maps I will be able to fight the sea bride. So that was the showcase. Now let's go over the skills, talents, and so on. So first, let's start with the skills. So again, I am using my machine guards just to detonate them. And the way this works is that you scale with your minion damage and with minion life. So this is why I'm using minion life support. On top of that, mechanical modification to make them even bigger and for them to have more life and damage, minion damage, critical strike damage, and precision strike. Before I went on full on crit, before I had like full good crit chance, I also went for the steamroll here. And if you don't have enough minions to have 3 minions on your skills and 3 minions on your second skill, also use Maniacal Army. I actually was using that for a very long time. So yeah, use Maniacal Army as long as you have to for 3 minions. And second link is exactly the same thing. Now the lip attack, quick mobility, just to move faster, harden it. Whenever you're gonna hit something with lip attack, you're gonna get hardened buff, which is gonna reduce your damage taken by 25, and precision strike because it also gives a little bit of attack speed. And this is the least needed one. Blink, also quick mobility, cooldown reduction, and periodic burst. This is gonna give you attack and cast speed, which is nice for lip attacking, and quick mobility gives a little bit of cooldown recovery. But number one priority, cooldown reduction, then quick mobility, then periodic burst. And the last skill is pretty much free skill. For a very, very long time, I was actually using the potion, which is this one. Yes, this potion, just to heal yourself from time to time. But right now, I don't think I need recovery anymore. I'm gonna show you in the gear section why, but for now, I am using safeguard. So I take reduced damage when I am in the ring, but on top of that, I have a talent, which I'm gonna show you later, that gives me barrier whenever I use sentry. So I am mostly using that for the barrier and cooldown reduction for better cooldown. For my auras, weapon amplification, number one priority. It just gives you damage and attack speed. It actually gives you also attack speed for your leap attack, so you move a little bit faster. Fearless for minion crit. And rejuvenation, which I'm using with seal conversion, so it converts my life instead of mana. So I have a good regen. This is definitely not needed, and I am definitely gonna experiment a little bit with the third aura later. But this is not a full guide yet. Like definitely this character is still in experimental stage. I'm definitely gonna figure out how to build it correctly later. Now for the talents. God of Machines, orders, so you can summon your minions faster. Plus 3 minions skill level for more damage. Here you're gonna see what I took. This is very important, plus 1 minion skill level. And also you don't need attack speed. Normally with order calling you would go for attack speed, but with this build we don't need it at all. Second one, Machinist, and I went for the boss, which actually I don't even need right now because I have 3 minions with and without it, but there's nothing else to take. A Broken Shell is pretty good. I actually am taking it from time to time when I'm fighting boss or something because it gives you big absorption, but it only absorbs 1 hit, so it is kinda tricky to use. So I swap between them from time to time. And this is also I think it gives you around 20% damage. So if you feel like you want to be even more tanky, you can go for kinetic conversion for getting barrier every time you move. This could actually be even good with the Broken Shell, because whenever you would get hit and if you move, you would get your barrier pretty much right back up. So it could be a good combo for survivability. And here you can see all of my points. And this is the most important one, also plus 1 minion skill level. And the third one is Alchemist, because Alchemist gives a good amount of minion damage. This I am taking pretty much just for my own attack speed, so I can move faster, not for minion attack speed. It also gives minion life and your own life, which also scales damage, so this is a pretty good tree in here. But unfortunately, it is pretty bad tree, I would say, here in terms of the major talents. There isn't really anything good in here. Normally with order calling you would go for Magus, sealed mana, but with this build we are not even using them, so it's kind of useless. So I went for the barrier, and here I went for the regen. But you also can take whatever you feel like. I still haven't tested ailments too much. There might be a build out there with minions inflicting ailments. I don't know yet. And that's pretty much it. I am gonna go over the leveling after I'm done with going over the everything. Now for the hero traits. So obviously Surprise Force is gonna make your minions detonate themselves whenever they lose Overload. But then when you go for Quick Battle, they're gonna detonate when they gain Overload, and it actually doesn't say in here, but as long as you have Overload buff active, they are gonna continuously be able to detonate. You don't have to summon them and then buff them with Overload. You just have to use Overload, and until it's up for you, they are gonna continuously detonate when you summon them. And this is also gonna give you the minion life scaling. You can see here 16% of base minion life and energy shield actually also is converted into physical damage for the explosion. And the next one is preparation. So this one is gonna let you summon one additional minion, and when minion detonate, we are gonna drop mechanical part, which is very important because it's gonna synergize very well with the later talents, I mean hero traits, but just with this trait, it is gonna reduce the cooldown of your overload by 0.5 seconds. This is which is the way you're gonna be able to have your overload active pretty much all the time without investing into cooldown recovery. Next one is Guerrilla Tactics, which is gonna give you basically automatic resummon of your minions. If the main skill is a synthetic troop, it will be automatically triggered when mechanical part is picked up, which is kind of awkward during mapping because mechanical parts always are gonna drop kind of behind you when you kill your monsters, so it's hard to pick them up during mapping. But when you are bossing, you're gonna just constantly trigger your main skill, and also you're gonna get some additional damage. And for the last one, I'm going for Meaningful Death, which is gonna give you additional mechanical parts when your minions are gonna hit the elite enemies and increased overload effect. So just more damage and more mechanical parts. So because of the way this works, so if the main skill is Synthetic Troop, and main skill is basically the skill you have on your right click, the way I usually play this character, I start with rotating between right click and Q. This is why I'm using two of them. Technically you don't need two minions, you could just use one, but I think for convenience and better DPS, going for two is better. So what I'm doing at the beginning is I'm using right click, Q, right click, Q, right click, Q, just constantly like that, and after I have decent amount of mechanical parts around me, then I just move around, pick them up, and I just use Q. I no longer click right click because the hero trait is gonna proc the right click for you. So it is a little bit weird. You need to get used to doing it, and also you don't want to press your summon too fast, because if you're gonna press it too fast, we are not gonna have time to proc the explosion, so we're gonna lose damage. So I'm gonna show you right now. I'm gonna hold right click, and you can see they didn't detonate. So you're just losing on that. You don't want to hold your right click, just click it from time to time. Look at the numbers. As soon as they detonate, click it again and again and again, and so on. For the hero relics, I am using just mostly focus on hero relics and memories on crit chance, crit damage, minion damage, and minion life. So here you can see I have minion crit and minion life. Second one, minion damage, minion crit rating. Next one, 10% additional self-destruct damage, which basically is 10% more multiplier, and 22 minion critical strike. And here, 60% minion critical strike rating, and adds 17% of base player life to minion life, which is actually, so far from what I noticed, is probably the best mod. It gives minions a lot of damage, but I only found one of these so far. So I'm definitely gonna try to get more of them. Maybe I could actually check the trade house. Maybe you could buy some of them over there. Haven't thought of that yet. Okay, so before I go over the gear, the last thing is Packspirits. So Packspirits doesn't really matter that much. Obviously, this section you just go for damage, this section for survivability, and bottom is kind of free. You can go for drops, obviously. But what I did is I went full for experience because I'm trying to level up as fast as possible right now. So reduce X penalty, XP gained, and so on. And here I'm using my own life, so a little bit of life and just physical damage reduction and so on. So I'm not even using any packed spirits for damage yet. Eventually, maybe I'm gonna use some for damage here, and I'm gonna have even more DPS. Right now, I'm actually focusing on survivability, which makes this build pretty tanky. Obviously, these are epics, so you might not have them. So if you don't have any pets, just take the base ones in the top right, then the top left. If you need some resistances here, for example, and then you can go for additional drops. I haven't bought any of them. All of the pets that I have came from the free crystals that we get by playing the game. Okay, so now finally the last thing is gear. And the reason why I wanted to go over it as a last thing is because you don't need pretty much any gear to be able to finish the campaign and reach time mark 7, in my opinion. You deal so much damage, you have pretty good survivability, just cap your resist, go for a little bit of life, and you're gonna be good. But I decided to invest a little bit more into my gear, so we're gonna see what to progress into once you are done with just your base gear. And also, disclaimer, I still am not sure if this is the best setup. Obviously, I still don't have a lot of Elementium, so I'm still not too sure what are the best items to invest into. So the first two items, Interlocking Soul, they are pretty bad for this build because you're gonna lose 5% life whenever you summon skills. So I would actually recommend using just one of them and maybe shield. I actually was using 2 of them, but when I was doing that I needed a lot of recovery everywhere else and I was very often killing myself. This is also why I was using the healing potion skill. But once you have enough currency, you can buy one or corrode yourself to get restore 3% life instead of lose 3% life. And I actually have 2 of them. First one I got lucky and I got it on my first try, and second one I was extremely unlucky and it took me like 40 tries, I think. I spent so much Elementium to get the second one, and now whenever I'm summoning minions I'm actually healing myself. Obviously you don't see it here, but I'm actually healing myself. This is why I'm not using potion, I'm using sentry. And I might replace it for something else later, I'm not too sure yet. So yeah, these are basically the weapons. Eventually you're gonna probably craft something, maybe wand, maybe a hammer, but for now I think this is gonna be best setup for best damage and defense early on. Next unique item I'm using is Warden's Breastpin. This basically enables you to scale your minions with your own crit. And I think this is pretty good early on because there is not that many minion stats on gear. And if you go for this, if you just get Warden's Breastpin, it's not really gonna give you that much damage. It's just gonna give you some int, attack and cast speed, max life and damage for your minions, but it's not gonna give you like any crit whatsoever. So you actually need to start crafting your own gear to get the crit. So here you can see I have just life, resist, and I have critical strike rating on my chest. Minion damage, minion life, my own life, and some resistances on helmet. Crit rating, which again is applied to minions because of the amulet. Minion max life, critical strike damage, and so on. Same thing for rings, critical strike rating, life, minion damage, resists, life, minion damage, resist, critical strike rating. Belt, same thing, but without crit because you can't get it on the belt. And for the last item, I'm using Mind Infusion, which I corroded, got pretty unlucky, got a life percent regen, which is nothing too crazy, but I'm mostly using it for +1, and it also gives me +1 synthetic troop, but I actually don't even need it because I have the talent from Machinist. If I remove the Machinist talent, then this is basically a replacement. So you definitely don't need it, but it is something pretty good early on if you want to not struggle with your minion troop quantity. So yeah, that's basically it. Again, try to get the corroded version, which actually can be pretty expensive. If not, just use maybe one of them and one shield. On gear, just focus on minion life and minion damage and minion crit if you can get it somewhere else. But once you get your Warden's Breastpin, you can start getting just a regular crit strike rating and crit damage on your gear. So that's basically it in terms of the information. Again, here I have 75% of all res, 5k life. For my minions, they have more than 50% crit chance and 700 critical strike damage, which means I probably should go for more critical strike chance somewhere. Don't know yet where. Also remember, don't get the corroded version of minions can only do physical damage. Once you get minions cannot deal physical damage, then you can go for 2 Decayed Mind as your rings, and then you can go for erosion damage, which I'm probably gonna try to do eventually, but as of right now it's probably gonna be too expensive, so right now I'm using non-corroded Warden's Breastplate. The last thing I want to talk about is what I did, like how did I progress it, what did I do during the leveling. So when I started, I actually didn't even choose the Surprise Force, because it would detonate your minions, and during leveling you pretty much kill everything with just your regular minion attacks, like anyway. You're gonna use 2 minions on your left, right click, 2 minions on Q, 2 minions on W, you're just gonna summon 6 minions, and they're just gonna kill everything normally. You basically play this hero just like you would play the Order Calling. You just let your minions follow you, and they're just gonna kill everything behind you. Then I went for the Overload here to give them even more damage, and still I didn't take this one. Remember, once you take it, you actually can't remove it, so I didn't take it. It's not that big of a deal if you took it. It's still a pretty good amount of damage from the explosions. I went for the Consecrated Fire, then I went for Preparation, and I think once I got Guerrilla Tactics, or around level 70 I think, that's when I actually took Surprise Force, then I respect to the Quick Battle, and I started utilizing my explosions, which meant that now I dropped the Dark Pact and Summon Machine Army, because these are pretty good buffs for your minions that you want to use early on if you are using your minions to deal damage themselves. So in case you don't know, let me show you what I was using. Machine Army, and you use it with just cooldown reduction supports and increased duration, and same thing for Dark Gate. You use Dark Gate for additional damage for your minions, and you link it with cooldown reduction and increased duration. And obviously for links you would drop Minion Knife, but early on you wouldn't even have 6 links, so this is probably your last link that you would get. Everything else would pretty much stay the same, maybe except for minion damage, you would go for like Maniacal Army. And for the talents, what I did early on, instead of the Alchemist, I actually went for the Warlock. Because Warlock gives you a good amount of cooldown recovery and so on, and power skill effect, which are the buffs that you give your minions. Here's some sealed mana, and where is it here? Cooldown recovery speed, which is probably the most important thing about that, and +1 energy charges, which is basically charges for your Dark Pact, Dark Gate, and the Machine Army. Also, it gives you some additional cooldown recovery in here and some support skill levels. So I went for this one just to reduce cooldown on my Overload and the buffs when I was summoning minions, but when I reached level 70, then I swapped to the Alchemist. And remember, before you are level 80, you can swap for free. This is why I wanted to do it before level 80. So yeah, that's basically overview. In case you are wondering what I think so far about the character, I mentioned it a little bit before. It is a very strong character. You're gonna be able to complete the game without any issues. It is also tanky because you have so much damage. You don't have to focus on your damage that much, so you can actually start taking some defensive gear and points on your talent tree and skills. Normally with minions, we are pretty tight on skills. You have to use Dark Gate, Machine Army. Here we don't have to do it, so I went for double mobility. You don't even have to do that. You could remove Leap Attack, you could go for some potion and sentry, maybe even some kind of defensive skill. There is a lot of choices you can go for. So far I like it because it gives you a little bit of a choice. It is very easy to complete the game, but for mapping it is a bit awkward. Eventually I'm probably gonna make second character as a mapper that has a ton of mobility and clear. This is definitely not the best character for that, but as the first character it is extremely good. So that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.